Joel, great to have you on. The president speaking yesterday, again, basically saying that, things are going well relatively, but potentially could go worse. What did you make of his messaging yesterday? And do you have any intel on what's actually happening on the ground right now?
Well, Jill, it's great to be with you. And for President Biden, this is clearly a significant moment, if not his most significant moment on foreign policy, and what will be a defining one for his term. And he's trying to lay out a doctrine about why he decided to leave Afghanistan, to have our troops come home. And it's a compelling one. It's one that is rooted in bipartisan support. It's one that President Trump actually began to move on a year and a half ago in terms of signing an agreement himself with the Taliban. So this moment President Biden is confronting is one where he sees popular support for exiting Afghanistan, but clearly concern about this withdrawal right now. And I think what we're seeing is the administration really stepping up its game in the last 48 hours or so to get Americans and those Afghans who supported us out of the country.
Certainly the images are hard to watch in terms of just the total chaos at the airport. What did go wrong? Even if theoretically or philosophically you agree with this idea that the United States can't stay in Afghanistan forever, where did things fall apart just in terms of actually making it happen?
Yeah, this is such a convoluted and complicated process to frankly understand in the moment, the heat of the moment that we're in. But what it appears is that, quite frankly, the Taliban cut deals with Afghan defense force organizations and essentially undercut the Afghan government at a speed that nobody in the United States government expected, nor in the international community. And so almost overnight, in just 11 days after the U.S. essentially had all of our forces out, the government collapsed. And I think that's the big miss. And it underscores how insecure our efforts really were there in Afghanistan. After 20 years, more than $1 trillion spent, thousands of lives lost, our veterans community devastated, and clearly the Afghan people is suffering as well. This government only lasted 11 days, and that just took everybody by surprise. There really were no public nor official assessments that, even though there were estimates coming out from different cables and different piecemeal that we're learning about, where it looks like things are getting worse quickly. That was in the heat of the battle and heat of the moment. This collapse really undermined the whole strategy that President Biden had. If I may, just one more point on this, is that much of the reason why the Americans and why our people and Afghan allies were not withdrawn in the last several months is because there was a sense that this government could hold, and the government itself, led by President Ashraf Ghani, did not want us to fully withdraw people because he thought that would send the wrong signal. So that really is where things went haywire, and that's why we're seeing the scramble we're seeing now.
The other side of this that we're hearing is from a lot of experts who say we could have just kept 2,500 troops, a relatively low troop presence in Afghanistan for quite some time. American troops hadn't been killed in combat in months. Mm-hmm. Where is that wrong, do you think?
Well, it's just a false choice. There really was no way to keep 2,500 troops in at the low level interminably. That we actually, through the peace deal that President Trump signed with the Taliban in 2020, we had committed to reducing our troop presence to that level, and they committed to not attack our troops. And that peace deal ended, and the Taliban was free to begin to attack. And the United States most likely would have had to have ramped up again our numbers. It was an artificial number because of that arrangement. It's not one that was sustainable over the long term. And that's really where President Biden just said, look, enough is enough. We understand where this is going. It won't change this year, next year, 5 years from now. I'm not going to get caught in that endless cycle. It's time to bring them home and just to pivot our relationship with Afghanistan.
The Taliban last week came out and was holding press conferences. They're trying to present this sort of gentler Taliban 2.0. What do you make of it?
Yeah. Well, clearly they learned that the reputation is very bad globally, as it should be. They're a horrific group. And what they're recognizing is that they have a window here to frame the way they're perceived and try to legitimate their rule. And it shows that they are sensitive to international opinion. There are a lot of players involved in this that weren't there 20 or so years ago when the Taliban was last in power. Pakistan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, the list goes on and on. Of course, we and our European allies for decades have been there. We know the region. So the Taliban is paying attention. There are conflicts between the Taliban and ISIS. The Taliban still faces resistance in other parts of the country. So it looks like they're trying to gauge how the international community assesses them, and also recognize that they don't want to completely upend right now Afghan society. That doesn't mean they won't try to, but at least in the near term, it looks like they're paying attention to the way the reaction is to their takeover.
That August 31st deadline, it's in about a week from right now. Do you think that we will be able to get all Americans out of the country and all of the people who help the Americans out of the country by then? Or do you think that deadline is going to have to be extended?
So the estimate is somewhere between 12 to 15,000 Americans remaining in the country, and finding them, ensuring that they've been taken care of, getting them safely to the airport. That's the higher priority than the deadline. And so I think the president's first commitment, and he said this as well, is to get them out. But certainly the transit vehicles, the private sector, the companies that have been enlisted now to help support the sending out of these refugees and bring out people, that's a very strong signal that the emphasis is on now on getting people out. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it much more quickly. And who knows, that deadline could be met, but I don't think it's a deadline that's set in stone if more Americans are in the country.
All right. Great insights this morning. Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and the president of the Washington Strategy Group. So great to have you on.